with space because, again, most people would never have thought the cynical macro guy who was betting on crises is the next minute is investing in space. What's your thesis there, and what got you to look at this? Because, it's now becoming apparent. Things like Rocket Labs is a public company, and obviously Tesla, SpaceX, everyone's now becoming fully aware with.
Despite recent price movements with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies continuing to trade in the same range for months, prominent cryptocurrency investors, analysts are certain of an impending breakout in the next few weeks, which they say will finally see Bitcoin break the current all-time high and continue the ascent until we hit six figures. Sound money advocate Raoul has an optimistic $100,000 price prediction for Bitcoin before the end of 2025, and he is 100% convinced that there is still enough time for this to be achieved. Larry and others who hold similar bullish predictions for the leading cryptocurrency believe the US presidential election in November would be a permanent and profound turning point for Bitcoin cryptocurrency prices. According to the popular portfolio manager, if pro-crypto former President Donald Trump wins the elections in November, Bitcoin and the entire digital asset space will immediately see a surge in demand, a significant price explosion as the regulatory uncertainty stopping investors from going all in will be permanently resolved. In his latest interview, as we bring you clips from the video, subscribe, like for more video like this, enjoy.
But when you started talking about this stuff, everyone was like, what is he talking about?
Yeah, well, it was purely launch costs. You could see when SpaceX started, was able to land and reuse rockets. I mean, essentially the cost of launch dropped by a factor of 10. And, talking with everybody in the industry for a long time, it seemed, poised to continue to just collapse. And so that just, I couldn't even imagine all the different types of, it's kind of like going from dial up to high speed, it opens up all kinds of markets that may not exist. The starting point is there's this just gigantic tailwind of absolutely collapsing launch costs.
But why do people want to go into space? This is what people don't yet understand. They're like, oh yeah, but sure, this was a government thing and governments did it for pride of nations stuff. But it's a corporate enterprise. Mm-hmm. What is going on?
Well, I mean, there are obvious things like, communications or, energy or, acquiring energy in space or building distributed networks of, in space where they're not in a fixed location. They're manufacturing in space is taken off. As a company I've invested in that found that they can, manufacture different things much more specifically, like we're more exact,
efficiently,
exactly. Efficiently. There is, down the road, which people laughed at me a lot about, but asteroid mining, which is certainly something that happens long term. There is the moon, which has fuel that can, whether it's helium-3 that can that will be used for fusion energy, or whether it's just simply exploring beyond. Space is kind of like, it's the frontier, and it's frontier investing in a place where you don't have so much the incumbencies, preventing growth. I mean, the incumbent is...
Well, you did have the incumbency. It's very much like Bitcoin, right? You had the incumbency of this massive state architecture that was hugely inefficient. Then suddenly out of nowhere, the private sector just took it. I mean, 90% of all launches are now private sector.
That's right. And so kind of that incumbency is, for the most part, kind of been broken through. And so, it's in many ways a land grab. And obviously, SpaceX is the early mover, and the wealth that obviously they've achieved is spectacular. It's one of the most exciting companies ever. But there are innumerable types of applying different technologies to space and using it. Innumerable use cases, and it's literally how we grow, and it is the frontier. So I'm definitely been focused on, and a lot of, I don't know if there's any like specific companies like to go into and explain sort of the thesis.
Yeah, let's move into other themes that you've been investing on the private side as well, because again, you always find stupidly interesting stuff really early. You and I had a dinner in San Francisco 10 years ago when we launched Real Vision. It's almost 10 years ago today, pretty close.
Yeah.
And I met this company, and they're doing just groundbreaking stuff, and you see all sorts of really interesting stuff. What are the things that are interesting you that you want to invest in?
Yeah, well, I mean that particular story is probably my that we had is maybe the most exciting, investment that I've made. That was a company called Misapplied Sciences, and you and I met the two of the three founders in the lobby of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, and
right.
And they had just left the Microsoft as in the Applied Sciences group, and they had an idea of creating a screen where every individual person looking at the screen without any kind of visual aid or any kind of wearable device would see a different something different on that screen. And for us at the time, the technology was, you either see a light or you don't see a light. But the kind of the long-term potential of a company like that is that, if they, succeed, then you have, every single screen becomes a smart screen that can deliver, personalized content to each person that looks at it, or even, can be.
And we're not talking here television screens or computer screens. We're talking gigantic display screens where I'm sitting next to you and I see a different thing on that screen than you do, which
That's
is
right.
like a bizarro quantum world.
Yeah. That's what it was. And I mean, this particular investment, Misapplied Sciences, which I can't talk about, I'm on the board of the company, but, they basically, after we invested, they went dark for 5 years and they built their technology. And then they came out and the 2020 Computer Electronics Show with Delta Airlines, who's one of the investors there. And Delta had the, keynote address, and they announced how they were going to be using this tech, and now if you go to like the Wayne County, the Detroit International Airport, the Delta terminal, you can go there and you log in, or you opt in, and you see this big screen, and it delivers all your personalized information. There'd be 100 people standing next to you, and they don't see what you're looking at. They see what they're looking at. And it's content that's just for them. And I mean, the technology now is such that the screens are fully interactive. So you can sit here, you can manipulate the screen that you look at, your fingers, your phone, you can access the web, you can play games on it. Personalized content can be delivered. It's at the same, and it is basically though an array of smaller LCD screens. And so you can theoretically make these kind of any size, and you can adjust the views. But the potential of a company like this is to have these screens kind of, I mean, it's like in every hotel lobby or every floor of every hospital, or the Intuit Dome, for instance, which is Steve Ballmer's LA Clippers' new $2 billion arena. There in LA, they installed one of these screens kind of for their VIP customers in one of the areas where, you go in and it is personal content delivered to every single person that walks in there. It can tell you where to get your food, or it can tell you, whatever, it can advertise to you. And doing this, I mean, what's interesting to me is they can build these screens for essentially the same cost as just a regular dumb, big LCD, monitor. And on just plug it into the wall kind of power. But the potential is to really replace, any and every screen. I mean, that's certainly in a public place where 85% of money is spent actually, away from the home, away from the screen. I mean, it's just kind of one technology.
It's incredible. Okay, give me another example of something you've invested in, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about how you do this. But yeah, give me another example of something you found that you're excited about, where you can talk about it. So obviously some stuff you can't, but whatever you think you can talk about, either in broad brushstrokes or whatever, or specific.
Yeah. Well, I would say there are a couple of investments that I've made that they're interesting. Like one is a company that has figured out how to edit the genes of crops like corn and soybeans in a way that improves yield. And so there's a company, again, that I invested in a long time
But is that not just standard genetic modified kind of seeds and stuff, or is it very different?
Well, it's not. You're not taking like genetics from another species and then planting it in this species. You're actually just altering the genetics of the particular species.
Obviously, over the long run, not in the short run. Obviously, markets go up and down with cyclicality, macro factors. But what he's trying to do is move out duration, which is what I've done as well. I found I've become a longer term investor and the real returns lie there. And Mark has gone from being an event specific catalyst macro guy to this big secular thesis macro guy well before I got there, obviously, because it's Mark. Anyway, I hope you learn something about how great investors think. And it's a real pleasure for me to be able to do this.
Check out the link below if you buy and spend coins. Check Nexo Exchange, $35 in Bitcoin just for sign in, and I'll see you in the next one.